Ancient China was one of the earliest civilizations, and its millennia-long political history has seen a cycle of dynasties, empires, warring states, shifting capitals, peasant rebellions, and foreign invasions. In the second millennium BC, the Shang became the earliest historically verified dynasty, or territorial rule by a single family line or clan. In the 3rd century BC, the Qin dynasty ruled the First Chinese Empire, a single political unit combining distinct territories and cultures, often by conquest. It was during the Qin dynasty that the first sections of the Great Wall were built, and over the centuries the Qin were succeeded by notable dynasties, such as the Han in the 1st centuries BC and AD, during which paper was invented and the Silk Road trade route with the West first formed, the Sui in the decades around 600 AD, during which the first section of the Grand Canal was built for internal transport of grain, the Tang from the 7th to the 10th centuries, during which woodblock printing was developed and Buddhism from India became an integral part of Chinese culture and ideology, the Song from the 10th to the 13th centuries, which saw the invention of paper money and movable type printing, and the Mongol Yuan, the first non-Chinese dynasty to rule China. By the mid-14th century, the Mongol Yuan was in a state of decline, from flooding, famine, epidemics, and misrule. Peasant rebellions indicated the Yuan had lost its mandate of heaven, the traditional Chinese belief in a divine right to rule, until such time that a society's downfall suggested the heavenly sanction was lost. One such peasant rebel was Zhu Yanzhang, a former Buddhist monk who became the first emperor of the Ming Dynasty in 1368, claiming his own mandate of heaven. Customary for dynastic rulers, he assumed a title, in his case the Hongwu Emperor. He established the capital of the Ming Empire in Nanjing, 600 miles south of the former Yuan capital of Beijing. The Ming Dynasty, which lasted nearly 3 centuries, brought bureaucratic leadership and organization, and as a result, China flourished economically and culturally. 3 areas of notable achievement were in architecture, printing and book production, and ceramics. In the early 15th century, the 3rd Ming Emperor, ruling under the title Yongle, moved the capital from Nanjing back to Beijing, where he built the Forbidden City. The imperial palace and political center of the empire, the Forbidden City was designed to represent the emperor's role as the link between heaven and earth. As such, it was built with a focus on traditional elements of Chinese design: numerology, which defined the sacred meaning of numbers; feng shui, also called geomancy, which established auspicious placement and alignment of structures with respect to cardinal directions and landforms such as mountains and rivers; and colors and symbols such as the use of imperial yellow and the imperial representations of the dragon and phoenix. Another notable piece of Ming architecture was the 16th century humble administrator's garden, one of the most famous private gardens in China. Built according to principles which emphasize harmony between residences and nature, it included streams, ponds, forested areas, and large rock formations to represent mountains, and included pavilions where residents and visitors could admire the views. Perhaps the most famous of all Chinese architecture is the Great Wall, which was built and expanded over more than 2 millennia, primarily as a defense against nomadic cultures to the north. During the Ming Dynasty, sections of the Great Wall were built from the Yalu River in the east, near Korea Bay, to the Jiayu Pass in the west. It was through the Jiayu Pass that Western merchants traveling along the Silk Road would enter China, and continue along the Imperial Highway, protected by the Great Wall to its north. The Ming Dynasty is also noted for its printing and book production. The technique of woodblock printing was perfected in the Song Dynasty, but its expression was further developed in the Ming by use of multiple colors. As it began to replace handwritten manuscripts, woodblock printing significantly lowered the cost of book production and, as a result, helped expand literacy among the populace. Full-length novels were widely produced in regional languages and dialects instead of classic Chinese, making them even more accessible among the less educated. The most celebrated fictional works in ancient Chinese culture are known as the 4 classic novels, 3 of which were written and published during the Ming Dynasty. They included an historical novel, one based on folk tales, and fantasy fiction. In the early 15th century, the Yongle Emperor commissioned the production of what would become the world's largest encyclopedia, until Wikipedia was created 600 years later. Known as the Yongle Dadian, meaning the vast document of Yongle, it combined Chinese texts from all areas of literature and knowledge, including such fields as the sciences, history, medicine, farming, and philosophy. With much of it lost to fire, rebellion, war, and pillage, only a small fraction of this work exists today, but what remains is the only source of certain knowledge from the lost texts it compiled. Another compendium of ancient knowledge was the Bengo Gangmye, a 16th century encyclopedia of Chinese medical knowledge. It assembled information from hundreds of medical texts and pieces of literature to categorize diseases and the drugs known to treat them. This included medicinal properties of nearly 2,000 plants, animals, and minerals, and over 11,000 prescriptions for treating common illnesses. The Ming is perhaps the most widely known of all Chinese dynasties, largely for its blue and white ceramics. The famous colors originated in the Mongol Yuan dynasty, which represented their legendary ancestors, a hazy blue wolf and a white fallow doe. Cobalt oxides were used to produce the blue pigment, and were sourced from modern-day Iraq, Iran, and Indonesia, and also mined locally in China. The deepest blues were from the foreign-sourced cobalt, due to its high iron content, while the locally sourced cobalt produced a pale, grayish-blue pigment due to its high manganese content. While pieces were produced during the Yuan dynasty, it was during the Ming Dynasty that production and worldwide demand flourished. An important center of factory production of this porcelain was the city of Jingdezhen. From there it would be transported to the Portuguese trading center in Macau and shipped to European markets where it was known as Carrackware, after the Portuguese carrack transport ships. This porcelain became so popular that it influenced production in other cultures, such as the Iznik pottery of the Ottoman Empire, Dutch Delftware, Japanese Arita ware, and the Persian porcelain of the Safavid Empire. By the middle of the 17th century, the dynastic cycle of Chinese history would turn once again. Famine, plague, currency crises, natural disasters, and widespread discontent among the peasantry and military class caused the Ming Dynasty to lose their mandate of heaven. It was replaced by the Qing, which was to be China's last empire, ruling until 1912 when China became a republic. I hope you've enjoyed this brief look at ancient Chinese history and some of the architectural and cultural achievements of its famous Ming Dynasty. Have a great day.